Hi, my name is Leandro Facchinetti, and let's write some code together, shall we? What we have on the menu today is part 2 of this series of streams. It's going to be a series in which I developed this new app called Notestrator. We came up with the name yesterday. And it is an app that allows you to draw on top of your screen for things like presentations and streams and Zoom calls or whatever. If you want to take notes on top of the presentation or draw some diagrams on top of your code or whatever else you're presenting. And we just got started with this app. It is going to be an Electron app because I want it to be cross-platform, and there is very little in the way of code so far. So there is already a repository for this. The link is in the description below. And what we did yesterday was to just get started with the app. And we talked about what we want the app to do and where we would like to take this idea in the future. But for now, we don't have much. We have cloned the repository with getting started template for Electron. And I know very little about Electron myself. And then we are going over what that template contains and understanding what's in there. And probably what we're going to do today is go over the rest of this and start the drawing engine. So that's another thing. We are going to develop, or at least try to develop, our own drawing engine, which is going to be very simple. Because at least to begin with, we just want to have one of these tablets connected, and we want it to work with the pen. So we just want to do a freehand tool, and I think it will probably be simple to do this as far as drawing engines go. Then we could have other objects like rectangles, circles, text, that sort of thing should be doable. But to begin with, we are going to go with just the tablet. So let's continue our traversal of this code base. So before, on the previous stream, we looked at the package JSON, and it seems like Electron is a development dependency. When packaging for production, we are going to do something different. But there is this Electron command line executable that looks like the Node command line executable. You give it a path or a file to run, and it will run that file, that JavaScript file, but it will run that JavaScript file in this special context that appears to even bring its own Node.js environment. So it's a different version of Node.js. So it is very self-contained. And then we started to look at this part of the code base, which is the file that we call. And in here, we learned that there is the app and browser window. The app is where we are going to attach things like keyboard shortcuts. And the browser window allows us to have a window to interact with. So here we have one of these windows, and it's loading an HTML file. And we collected this yesterday, so we looked at the documentation and we learned that there are some parameters that we want to pass. And we also looked at what happens here in this part where we manage the windows. And to start the app, we can say npm start, after, of course, having run npm install. And it says, hi, David, because I had David as a guest yesterday. As you can see, it's running Node 14, which is not the version of Node that I have installed. I have installed Node 16. So Electron comes with its own Node.js, which may have been patched. I don't know. I will learn Electron as we go. So let's look at what's happening here, this web preferences. And then there is this preload file. Let's see what's happening here. All of the Node.js APIs are available in the preload process, it has the same sandbox as a Chrome extension. So Electron is based on Chrome. It is like Google Chrome, but without the Google Chrome window, and then your app is the window. And let's see what this is doing. So we are writing this application in JavaScript, but it's important to keep track of which JavaScript is running in which part. We have to have our heads straight about the different kinds of processes in the whole Electron architecture. There is some JavaScript that is like this JavaScript, and that is running on the Electron level or the node level. And that's where we can do things like create browser windows. And then there is JavaScript that is running in the Google Chrome window that is our application. So here we will have access to different APIs. It's the same language, it's still JavaScript, but it's a different API. For instance, window is not available here on the main file, but it's available here on preload. So this is a file that is running in the browser window. So you create a browser window, this preload is running in that browser window. It's as if you had like a Google Chrome tab, Google Chrome window open, and then you write some JavaScript in the index file to control things like opening and closing tabs and so forth, or maybe moving the window around. And then in the window, you run some JavaScript that manipulates whatever is showing in the window, like the buttons and whatnot. And that's probably why they had to separate index and preload, because they run in different stages of execution. So here we have access to the window, and then we have access to DOM content loaded, which is an event that is triggered when the HTML has been parsed. So the window will have some HTML. When the HTML has been fully parsed, this event is emitted, and then we run this function. And in this function, what is happening? So there is this replace text. Okay. So in our example application here, we see the versions of Node and Chromium and Electron. And we get those numbers in here dynamically. So in the HTML, it doesn't say what is the version of Node. It has a spam tag in there for the JavaScript to fill in. I don't think we need this, at least not to begin with. So we can remove the preload file, and in the index, we remove this as well. And because we did that, we can remove this. So the way I am learning about this and interacting with this API is by removing the parts that I know I will not need, and I am doing some searches on the documentation and finding the parts that I will need, but it's very preliminary. So now that we did this, the preload is no longer going to happen, and we can open the application again, and it doesn't say the versions of the libraries anymore. Now, this is very minimal, but let's look at renderer. So renderer.js, this is a file that is called from the HTML. So in our index file, we are creating a window. So it's similar to creating a tab in Google Chrome, and we are loading a file, which is similar to going to an URL. So it's similar to, so this line here is similar to coming here to Google Chrome and opening a new window. And then this line is similar to saying, go to somewhere, like go to GitHub. Or in this case, load this file. So this is the HTML that is actually going to load. And this HTML refers to this JavaScript file that is empty. So this file is required by the index file and will be executed in the renderer process for that window. No Node.js APIs are available in this process because Node integration is turned off. Okay, so it seems like it is possible for us from the HTML, we can write some JavaScript, but we can have access to some Node APIs, maybe not all of them, if we enable node integration, which I guess is a way for you to disable the sandboxing that would happen in Google Chrome, for instance. You cannot just access any kind of API from a Google Chrome tab for security reasons. And similarly, if you maybe want to load in your Electron app some untrusted or partially trusted HTML, then it will be in the sandbox as well. But if you know that you are in control of everything in the HTML, then you probably are safe to enable node integration. Use preload.js, the file we just deleted, to selectively enable features needed in the rendering process. So it's not just a one switch that you switch on and off. You have more fine-tuned control over what will be available in the renderer processes. And the renderer processes are the ones that are the tabs, the JavaScript running in the tab. But I don't need that, and I don't need this. Not yet, anyway. Now let's look at this HTML that we have here. So there is some security policy. I wonder if that is relevant. I wonder why this is here, and I wonder why it appears twice. It probably has to do with all the sandboxing that goes on and all the security things for untrusted code, but to begin with, I don't think we have to worry about this. So I believe it's safe for us to delete these. And I think that this title will be the title of the window that we end up opening. Like this. So that's cool. Oh, and yesterday we wrote some CSS that was not being loaded, or that was not being rendered. But it appears that by removing these lines, we are enabling this. So cool stuff. Yeah, so if I rerun the app with the lines here for security content policy, then we don't see a background color. That is the CSS we wrote, a background color. But if we take this out, then we will see the background color, which is fun. Okay, that's nice. That's what I wanted to have in the first place. And then these meta tags, we should talk about this. They are equivalent to HTTP headers. So if you had this in a regular request response cycle in a browser, then this would be part of the response headers. So here I have GitHub open, and I can go to the network tab, and I refresh the page, and then I can see all the HTTP requests that the browser is making. And then I can click on any one of them, and there will be a bunch of headers, they're response headers. But in an Electron app, there is no request response cycle. So if there is something controlled by a header, like the content security policy, if there's something controlled by a header, but there is no header because we are talking about an Electron app that is not necessarily making an HTTP request, how do you set those settings? Well, you can use this meta tag, which is equivalent to the HTTP header. And with HTTP headers, you can control many things about the rendering of the HTML. So cool stuff, but we don't need that. In fact, we don't want that, because then we can have control over the CSS using a background color, for instance. So let's restart the app. And then we have our color there. Nice. So at this point, I think we pretty much got to the bone of how an Electron app works. Yeah, so let's commit what we have, which is mostly deletions. We are mostly just deleting stuff. And I want to go to the drawing engine, but before I go there, I want to maybe add some structure to this project so that it reloads it reloads the project every time I save and reopens the Electron window. Maybe we would like to have TypeScript as well, and maybe a source directory, and probably a license and whatnot. So here's what I'm gonna do. I'm going to open another project of mine that is written in TypeScript. So I guess Kasha is as good as any. Yeah, I'll open Kasha. We talked about Kasha in previous episodes. And I'm going to copy over the things that I know I will need. So a code of conduct and a license and a TS config. Now just copy them over. And I guess I can close this so I don't get confused with what's going on. But let's look at the TS config. I know I don't want this line, probably. But let's look at what we have here. So I am creating. It's complaining about something, but I don't know what it is. No inputs were found in config file. Okay, so maybe it's just because I don't have a source directory yet. But let's look at this TypeScript configuration file. So I will have a source directory. Let's create one. And my app will be in there. You know what? I don't think it's time to bring TypeScript yet. We have things so simple here. Let's keep that simplicity. We'll get there. Do we want a reloading kind of thing? Maybe. We could use something like nodemon to monitor the files and then reload when they change. We'll see. If we get annoyed by having to manually reload the file, so coming here to the command line and restarting the application, if that gets annoying, then we will bring this infrastructure to the project. But I will not do that preemptively. And I do want the license and code of conduct. So that's a good start. So with that, maybe we can move on to the drawing engine, because there isn't much happening here. But we can start working on this part. So for now, we have this lovely little window with nothing interesting going on. Let's really just get rid of everything in here and start over with a new file. I don't need this compatibility tag, and this is probably unnecessary as well, but I don't know. And let's call this the Notestrator. I did some research and I don't really know if Telestrator is a trademark or not. But in any case, it's called Notestrator because I want to avoid the trademark issues. So what we want here is to have an SVG that will cover the whole window. And I will work on the drawing engine first, and then I will work. We already did this yesterday. We know that it's possible to have a transparent window that will be overlaid on top of our window. So I guess I'll start working on the drawing engine. So we definitely want to do this as an SVG. We talked about this yesterday, how I want to come up with a vector-based drawing engine. And I want the SVG itself to be the data structure for our drawing. So I believe I can say width. So we have here on our index file the width and the height of the window. Of course, this will be the width and the height of your screen, right? Because we want the thing to be an overlay on top of your whole screen. But for now, we are working with 800 by 600. So let's have 800 by 600. And by the way, we probably want this to resize. So if you're running our app and you change the screen resolution, we want to resize probably. And there are other directions where we would like to take this drawing engine. We talked about this yesterday. We want to maybe have a collaborative thing that multiple people can draw on the same canvas, and a note-taking app or a presentation, a kind of a whiteboard app with an infinite canvas. So we will have to change this. But for now, we are working with this hard-coded size. And then I guess I will do something like maybe a style background color of blue, just so we know that the SVG really does take the whole screen, which it will not, because by default the body has some margin. So let's look at how this looks. Yeah, so there is a margin here on top and left corners, and we don't want that margin. So I'll start writing maybe some style in here that is margin 0. And by having done that, then the margin goes away. So now we have our canvas here, and now we need to take care of, well, putting things on the canvas, but we need to take care of capturing clicks. First of all, I want to make sure that I can draw on the SVG, so I'll put a circle in here. It will be maybe at 400. And its radius will be 100, and its fill will be black, which is the default. So that is a circle, and we can restart this, and we see a circle in the screen. So we are able to draw in the SVG, and the color is there for us to see the space that the SVG is taking. Felipe Castillo, hi Felipe, says, here to learn as much as I can about HTML and CSS, which is my weakness. Looking forward to your streams. Also, I'm not sure, but I thought you said you would use React for this app. Is that true? No, we talked about React yesterday. We had David over, and David was explaining to me things like how in React, if you have an effect using a hook, then you can disable the effect calling a function that the hook function returns. In any case, we were talking about React yesterday, and we could use React in our app, but I really don't feel like using it. As much as I can, I will avoid using React or Vue or Svelte or anything. We'll just use HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. Maybe TypeScript, but I will avoid React as much as I can. We'll see. I think that the app is relatively simple in its scope. The more interesting things are like the drawing algorithms, like we want to have an eraser, so you would have to do collision detection. So that sort of thing is interesting, but I don't think that React helps us much in this. So no, I'm planning on just using HTML. We'll see how this goes. So now I need to capture clicks. So we want to write some JavaScript here in not the index.js. Remember, that is our Google Chrome frame of sorts. We don't want JavaScript here on this level. We want JavaScript on the level of the tab, so inside our tab. So let's see if we can do just anything at all, like alert hi. Just make sure that if you put a script tag, it will execute that script tag when you run the app. And it says hi. So it does execute the JavaScript. And how about we change this to listen for, so add event listener, maybe a mouse down. So now when I click, I expect to see the alert. I click and I see the alert. Now, I don't remember really if there is a mouse move event or a drag event. But before I even go there, instead of just alerting high, I want to alert the position, because I definitely will need to get the position where I clicked. So the event listener calls my function with an event object. And I can take a quick look at the event object. This is probably going to be a huge object. Oh, no, it's not a huge object. It's just is trusted true. Maybe it is a huge object with a weird to-JSON implementation, but I don't know what is available in the event. Maybe autocompletion will help me. So I see X and page X and client X and offset X and screen X and movement X. Okay, lots of coordinates. Let's start with X. An event Y. And I guess I restart the app. So here I expect the numbers to be relatively low, 26. And for some reason I just got one number. But if I go down here, I guess it's because you cannot just put multiple things in an alert like this. I'm not sure. In any case, so if I click down here, I expect the number to be high. And it is. Awesome. So now let's take a quick look at MDN and mouse drag, maybe. Drag event. As an element or text selection is being dragged by the user. Okay, so there is the drag start, the drag end, the drag over. Oh, I guess this is for dragging and dropping things, which is not the case here. What I want is just to know if I have clicked and I moved, which is a different kind of event. Okay, so there is a mouse move. Oh, so the example is going to be a canvas. Awesome. So good to have found this. So it appears that we are on the right direction. We talked about this yesterday. We don't want to have a canvas element, an HTML5 canvas element as our canvas. We want to do this with vectors. So we are using the SVG as the canvas. But we can try to lift some of this structure of this program. So let's see. What is happening here is there are three handlers, one for down, one for move, and one for up. And we are keeping track of our state. So when we say mouse down, we say that we are drawing. And when we say mouse up, we say that we are no longer drawing. And then on mouse move, we draw a line. Okay. So how about we listen for mouse down and we don't alert. And it seems like we have to keep track of this offset situation here for whatever reason. We'll see why, probably. So offset X and Y gives you the X and Y from the edge of the canvas, but why would we need to keep track of the offset if we... Oh, we need to keep track of the offset because that's how we are... Okay, I get it. So we need to keep track of the offset because the way this works is we keep track of where the cursor is, so there are these global variables X and Y, and we keep track of where the cursor is in time. We keep track of this over time. And then what we do is we see where the cursor is, we see where it was the last time we checked, and then we draw a line between these two places. Okay, I'm going to start with this and we'll see how it looks. And I also have the tablet here so I can draw and I'll see how it feels. And we need the offset here because we want this coordinate to be relative to the canvas, which is the case in our example here. We don't want this to be relative to the window. But in my app, I think that it would be okay to have this relative to the window because the window and the element start at the same point. It doesn't really matter if I use X or offset X. So let's use a similar approach. I'm not going to copy and paste. I'm going to recreate this idea. So I like the idea of global variables. So I'm going to start with that. So is drawing starts false and X starts at 0 and Y starts at 0, or maybe not. X and Y don't even have a state to begin with. So on mouse down, we'll say that X is equal to event X, or maybe offset X. I don't think it matters. And then we'll keep track of Y, and then is drawing will be true. And in here, they have some treatment for the other handlers to only act when we are in a certain state. But we will not do this, at least not for mouse down anyway. So on mouse down, we are taking note of our current situation. And I guess I'll go ahead and do add event listener mouse up. And I don't think I need to get a hold of the event. What are they doing on mouse up? Oh, they are drawing a last line. I think that it will be fine because you may not have like the last segment, but we'll see. I'll draw and I'll see how this feels. But the only thing I'm going to do is I'll say is drawing equals false. And I don't need this treatment because I am not drawing a line. And then I will have the add event listener for mouse move. This one. And for this one, I will need the coordinates. So if I am not drawing, I'll stop. This is another way of doing this, but it takes away one level of indentation. So if I'm not drawing, then I stop. If I am drawing, then I will want to update these variables, but I will want to draw a line. The way that I draw a line is I need to get a hold of this SVG because I will need to manipulate it programmatically. So I'll say const, and I think I'll call this the drawing, which is equal to document.currentScript.previous element sibling. So what I'm saying is take the document, which represents the HTML, take the current script, which represents the tag itself, and take the previous element sibling, which is the SVG. And I guess I don't need the circle anymore because I will start drawing. So in here, I have a hold of the drawing. I can add no, it's insert, not add. So I can insert adjacent HTML before end. So what is this incantation? Let's talk about what's going on here. So I have a hold of the drawing, and it is an object that represents my SVG. And there is this method called insert adjacent HTML. What this method does is it gives me insert adjacent HTML I will provide it some HTML. So I will provide it something like, I think it's line. Let's look at MDN SVG line. Something like this. So I'm giving it some HTML, and then insert adjacent HTML will insert this string. It will convert that into an HTML object, and it will insert it before the end. So there are 4 options. You can do before begin, so it will add a sibling before the drawing. I can do after begin, so it is at this position, so it's right after this opening tag. I can do before end, which is what I'm doing right now. So by doing this, I will always add to the end. It's like I'm drawing on top of what's already there. And I'm doing this in this order specifically because in SVGs, if you have multiple things, they will render in order, and the things below will be on top of the things above, which is a weird way of saying it, but yeah. So if I have 2 lines here, line 1 and line 2, they will be rendered in order, so line 2 will appear on top of line 1 if they overlap. And then there is a 4th option for insert adjacent HTML, which is after end. So it will insert at this point. So before begin, before end, after end. And here I want to say a line, but I want the coordinates to be, so x1 is our previous x, and y1 is our previous y. X2 is our current x, and y is our current y. And I think that by default the stroke is black, so I don't need to say that. We'll see. Let's restart the app and see what we have. Probably it will not work. Yeah, it doesn't work. How can we reason about this? Well, let's start by having a line like this, just hard-code it into the SVG and see if that works. So if I had a line from 0, not 0, 0, maybe 10, 10, to, let's say 50, 50, does that render? It does not. So maybe we do need the stroke equals black for that to show up. Okay, so now it's showing up. Let's try the stroke black in this programmatic version. Okay, we have a simple drawing thing, and it is vector based, and I'm now firing up the tablet. Awesome. Very simple but effective. I can see, if I look closely, that I can see the lines. So I can see the lines here. And that is probably because the mouse move event doesn't fire often enough for this to be a smooth curve. Let's try this with a smooth curve. But it doesn't look too bad. If I do it too fast, then we start seeing the jittering in the line, how it doesn't keep track. But this is not bad for a first try. Let's see if what we have here on this example is any better, because maybe it's just something we can work around doing something. No, I can see the same kind of squareness to these lines. So we can try to work on smoothing this out, or we can try to work on other things like different colors and different stroke widths. There is something I want to show. I can use the developer tools to look at the SVG, and it is a bunch of lines, lots of lines. I wonder what would happen if instead of having lots of lines, I had an SVG, let's look on MDN, an SVG path. Then it's just a single object. So there are these basic shapes, we'll have to look at them. So it's a single object, but it gives me the possibility of putting a lot of segments into it. And I guess maybe polyline would be even better. Yeah, look at polyline. It's a group of connected straight lines. So instead of having a bunch of lines, I will have a polyline instead. Not necessarily, I don't think that this will necessarily make anything smoother, but at least it will be more correct, I think. So on mouse down, I will create a polyline. On mouse move, I will add points to the polyline. And on mouse up, I will remove the polyline, or I will stop touching the polyline. So yeah, cool stuff. Let's use the polyline just to see what this feels like. But before I do that, I want to commit this version because it is kind of working. So is drawing will go away. I will keep track of things with the current line. So I'll change the is drawing to current line. And the current line will start null. And when we say false, we say null instead. And if the current line is null, then return. But here the current line will be one of these guys. So we'll do some work here. This time I don't necessarily want to just insert, because if I do just insert adjacent HTML, I don't get a hold of this as an object. So what I'm going to do instead is document create element of polyline, and I will say drawing dot insert. I think it's append child. That seems correct, with the current line. So I don't need most of this. I will probably need the stroke. Maybe not even that. We'll see. So we can get rid of this. And then there is this points attribute. So what we are doing here is we are creating a current line. It is the polyline. We are putting the polyline in the drawing, so we are doing something equivalent to the insert adjacent HTML. Now let's start off this points thing by saying current line dot set attribute called points with the value that is event X space event Y. And then I don't really need to keep track of our previous points because the polyline will keep track of that for us. So we can get rid of all this. We can get rid of these and we can get rid of those. So this implementation will be even cleaner, I think, and also more conceptually correct. But we'll see how it will perform. So we are setting the attribute points to that. Now on mouse move, we are not going to add we are not going to insert an adjacent HTML. We're just going to look at the current line and we are going to set an attribute. So something very similar to this, except that we need to keep the previous points that were there. So let's get a hold of, with get attributes, let's get a hold of the existing points and interpolate them right here. And commas are optional. You can separate with commas, spaces, and whatever. I'll put commas around coordinate pairs. So let's restart the app and see what we have. Okay, it's no longer drawing. Let's just put a hard-coded polyline and see if we have the same stroke problem we had before, where the stroke had to be explicit. So let's start with this polyline, and these coordinates are within our range, so it should show up. And it does show up. It's kind of weird, but it's here. Maybe what we need for this to not be weird is to have no fill, but I wonder if there is a default stroke. Okay, so I got rid of the fill and I can no longer see the figure, so probably we need the stroke with some color in there. Now we can see the line. So we do need to say, when we create an element, we are setting some attributes to the element. We need to say, maybe we do it like this. So we create a current line, we set some attributes on the line, and then we put the line in the drawing. So we will need points, but we will also need fill and stroke, and this will be none, and this will be black. And we can get rid of this polyline. Now I still don't see anything. Let's open the developer tools and see if we are even creating a polyline in here. So there is a polyline, and the fill is none, the stroke is black, the points are there, but it still doesn't render. That's weird, right? Because we just got one of those working. Let's copy and paste this into here. And then I see the polyline. But when I do this, I don't see the polyline. So I should have at this point 2 polylines on the drawing. One that I inserted by hand and another that I created by drawing. And the weird thing is I don't see the second one. Do I have to like explicitly refresh the window? I didn't have to do that with the lines. Why does a polyline need that? Oh, it's so fun to have the developer tools open and I can see the coordinates. So when I start and I just hold the cursor, these are the coordinates, and then I move it and the coordinates are filling in. So let's copy and paste this guy. And restart the app. And then I see a polyline that I draw. So I don't know why it's not showing up, but there is something interesting I can do to just test the look and feel of this. It won't be 100% perfect because, I mean, I won't see the line in real time, but I can take my pen, I can draw one of those quick circles, and we can compare with what we had before. So I just drew one of those quick circles. Let's toggle the developer tools, grab the SVG polyline. Oh, it's not here. What's happening? Let's try this again. So now it's there. Copy this over to the SVG. Here is the polyline. It seems more smooth or smoother. It seems better. I mean, it's hard to tell because I had to do this handstanding to actually see. But okay, so I don't know exactly why this is not showing up. But I do know that I want to make a change to this, so we'll do both things, and then so I'll do the change and maybe it will fix everything. We'll see. I don't know. So instead of using create element and set attribute, I thought this was going to be easy, just maybe set attribute of points, but I do need other attributes. So I will return to our adjacent thing, and I will get a hold of the polyline in some other way. Here, I will show you how this works. So we have the drawing, and we can use insert adjacent HTML, and we can insert before the end, and then we can just write some HTML. And I'm doing it this way because I am more comfortable doing it this way. That's how I know how to do stuff to the DOM. So I will say pretty much the example from MDN, except that I know I will need the fill and the stroke, so I will add those as well. So fill is none and stroke is black, and the points, I want them to be these points to begin with, of course. Just some manual indentation work, and then I don't need to do all of this, but I will need to take the drawing and get our query for, or just get the last child, right? Last element child. And then I don't need to append. So let's see if this makes sense. When I mouse down, I will insert the polyline, and I will just get the last element child, which will be my current line. Okay, so this works. Probably the issue had to do with the create element way of creating an element, as opposed to insert adjacent, what is it called? Insert adjacent HTML. Insert adjacent HTML. So if I do quick circles, I can still see the polyline filling in. I can still see the edges. But I am kind of okay with how this looks. Let's see if I try to write something like, I mean, it's not perfect. For one thing, it's not pressure sensitive, so the line looks insecure, if you know what I mean. It looks shaky, but also my handwriting is not awesome, especially not on the tablet. But it looks like this just may work. Maybe good enough for taking some quick notes on top of things. So with that, I can work on stroke width or colors, or I can work on the window management situation. Because I need to draw this window on top of my whole screen, I need it to be transparent, I need to be capturing and not capturing clicks in different situations. So there's a lot to work on in this part. I guess I will do the fun stuff, which is colors and widths. So let's commit what we have. I do like this version better. Everything in here seems fine. Yeah, so let's do some colors. Yeah, let's start with colors. So I will remove the blue background. We'll have just a white background. And my initial thought here is that we should just have a fixed palette, because I just want people to download this and start using it and not really tweak it too much. I don't want many drawing tools. I just want a freehand tool to begin with. So as far as color goes, let's take like 6 or 8 colors and just have a fixed palette, and that will be that. So let's start with that. And I do want the thing to have a menu that you can see. It will be an overlay that you can see and you can click and you can discover things, but also I want it to be hideable. But I will start by drawing the menu. So I'll do a div here, And here I will do a trick, which is to put the overlay on top of the drawing, I guess, because the drawing eventually will cover the whole screen, and I need the overlay to appear on the screen. So I want the overlay to be on top of the drawing. Hang on. We have to think about how we want to draw this. Do we want to have this as a component in the same window, or do we want to have a separate window that sets this? Because at some point we may want to have, so I'm thinking ahead. We can do this two ways. We can either have one window, like the window that we currently have. We can have one window, and on this window oh, so look at that. That's interesting. I changed the HTML, but I did not reload the application. And when I close and reopen the window, it reloads the HTML file from the file system. So check this out. If I come here and I draw something and I close it, but I don't close the app, it's still running. Just closed the window, and I say that the background color is tomato, and then I reopen the app. The background color is tomato because it's loading the HTML. It's hot reloading the HTML. So we don't need to restart the app every time we change the HTML. We just need to restart the app if we change the index file, which will be less frequent. Awesome. So there is some sort of live reloading. Great. Where was I? I was thinking about the ways I can draw the user interface for this. I can do this with an overlay on top of my SVG, or I can have a separate window. And I may prefer that because I may want to have a situation where I have a drawing on top of your screen, but I want you to be able to interact with the screen. So you will be able to like move around in Visual Studio Code and click on stuff. But I still want to show the drawing on top of it. So I want the window to be click-through. But I don't think I want the menu to ever be click-through, because a menu being click-through is weird, right? You see a button and you click on it and it doesn't work, or it's like transparent or whatever. Its opacity is not 100. So yeah, I don't want that. I want this window to be separate from the window that has the menu, because as far as I can tell by reading issues on the GitHub for Electron, I learned that to do a click-through window is relatively straightforward. To do a non-click-through window is relatively straightforward, but to do a window that is partially click-through is a hassle. So I will have a window that is your drawing, and that's it. And I will have a separate window, which is your menu. So let's do another one of these, and we will have a main window. So I guess I will just change this real quick. So I have some changes going on here, so I'll commit them. Do I care about these changes? Yeah, doesn't really matter. Then I will refactor this so it's in a single line, because I can. Still works, I can draw. Then I will have not only so this create window is being called here. So I'll have not only the index, but I will also have the menu. The menu doesn't need to be too wide. It can be something like this, maybe 100, and the height being 600 is fine. So they will be moved separately as well. And I find it nice to have a different browser window for this, so I don't have to implement all the click and drag of the menu myself. It will be literally a separate window. But we do need to create the menu HTML file. And this will be the menu. And in here, let's have just a p tag that says hello world. And if we rerun the app, this time I do need to do this because I changed some stuff in index.js. I do have a separate window for the menu. Great. Let's pick some colors. So I'll have a div, and in this div I will have a bunch of colors. I guess I will hard code the colors for now. And I want this div to have some display flex direction of column, gap of 1 rem, and that's it. I want it to have a height of 100%, or not really, I want it to have a height of 100 view height, so it occupies the whole screen. I want the body to have no margins, similar to this body. I want the body to have no margins, and here I will have buttons for things like blue and red and green. So now let's close the windows and reopen. And now we have a menu here, blue and red and green. Excellent. Now we want these buttons to change the color that we draw with on the other window. So we need some sort of communication between this window and that one. Let's learn about how to do communication in the Electron docs. So I know that this is called IPC for interprocess communication. Is there like a guide for this? Notification, recent documents, application progress, custom doc menu, keyboard shortcuts, native file, off-screen rendering, dark mode, web embeds, boilerplate and CLIs, application architecture, accessibility, distribution updates. No. So let's look for Electron IPC. Yeah, I was hoping to find not the docs but some quick tutorial. So maybe that's what those are. Here maybe we'll find, maybe even in the docs we'll find a quick tutorial. So in the main process we'll need this. And then in the renderer process we can send events. So I suppose that the source of truth, so the communication between the two different windows will have to go through the main process. And I guess the main process will be the source of truth as far as what colors are enabled and so forth. Yeah, so let's start by let's see if we have some changes. We do. Great stuff. So I'll organize it this way. First, my main process, and then my menu and the index file. So in the main process, I will need to take the IPC main from Electron, IPC main. And then I can listen to custom messages. I like this synchronous message. I can listen to those messages and I can do stuff to the message. I can even have some arguments when I pass this message along. I guess to begin with, I would just say IPC main on color. So I'll have an event called color, and my event will have some argument that I don't really care about right now and a color that I selected. So for now, I can just console log the color to make sure that I'm receiving the event properly. Then on my menu, I will say that I need a script where I will have, so is this how this works? In the renderer process web page. So I'll just say something like this, require Electron. I will do this in the head, so IPC renderer becomes my global variable that I can access from these buttons. So on the buttons, I will say on click, IPC renderer dot send sync of the event color with the particular color, like so. So we changed index.js, so we need to restart the whole app. And then when I click on the buttons, I don't see anything on the console. Let's begin by just trying console log and see if that works. Restart the app. Console log does work. So I may be not receiving the event. Let's see, IPC is an event emitter. When used in the main process, it handles asynchronous and synchronous messages from a renderer process. Messages sent from a renderer will be emitted to this module. Sending messages. Okay. Did I say IPC renderer correctly? Yes. Send sync of color, which is my message. What is wrong? I don't know. Well, let's begin by checking that I can do something with the buttons. So I'll say like alert of the color. Yes, that works. Now, let's alert. So I'm going to test something weird now. I'm going to alert the IPC renderer itself because this require syntax is not something that usually works in the browser. So either Electron is doing some magic or this will not work and IPC renderer will be something weird. Yeah, it doesn't show. So let's go to the tutorials here and see if we find something relevant. So this is the main process, IPC main. Yeah, they're not doing anything special. And here they are doing a load URL, which is not the same as what we are doing, but you're just, or is it? Are we doing a load URL? No, we are doing load file. It shouldn't matter. I hope it doesn't matter. Okay, it's time to do some very weird debugging. So before require and after require. Before require and after require doesn't even show up. So it means that require failed, probably, right? I mean, I can try to open a developer tools window, but I don't know how that's going to look because it's such a small window, but I can resize it. So yeah, that's gonna be fine. And I do have some alerts here, and it says require is not defined. Electron security warning. This renderer process has either no security content security policy set or a policy with unsafe eval enabled. This exposes users of this app to unnecessary security risks. I guess that's one of those meta tags in HTML that I removed. The main problem here is that require is not defined. So I was right to think that this was weird because require is not something that you do in the browser, it's something you do in Node.js. So there's something different about the way that people are doing this browser window creation or the loading of the file. There's something weird the way that they are doing that so that they can use require in the browser. The documentation doesn't help me much, but could it be that I need to do load URL? Let's see. So instead of doing load file, okay, I guess at this point I should probably commit because I'm going to start trying different weird things. Well, we are already trying very weird things, but I'm committing anyway. So instead of load file, we'll load URL. Felipe says, I have an Electron app and I use require inside the HTML. I usually attach it to the window. Ah, okay. So how do you load the HTML? Because that must be the source of the confusion here. Yeah, so just doing that doesn't work. I just replaced load file with load URL. That's not enough. We probably need to give it a path, but this is weird. But let's try it. So copy this over, and I will copy this over. It's deprecated, but we'll see. And here we load the menu. Okay, that's true. Path is not defined. Okay, so the error is path is not defined. I just have to say const path equals require path so that this part works. Before require and nothing. So no, using load URL is not enough. How to use require in renderer process in Electron. Maybe it has to do, so this answer leads me to believe that it has to do with the path in the require that we have here, so we shouldn't just say require Electron, but that is what is in every example. So what gives? Oh, so maybe that's why we would need a preload file. Or maybe we can just say that we want to enable node, right? We learned that that's a thing. So I'll revert all these changes because they did not work for me. And I will do the enable node. What is it called? Enable node, node enabled. Come on. Let's go to the docs for browser window. Node integration. Okay, thank you. So Felipe said it's called node integration true. Before require, no after require. So no, it's not just node integration that is missing. Oh, but it's under web preferences. Okay. So we should say web preferences and then node integration. Oh, no, cancel. Clicked on the wrong thing. Let's see, before require, no after require. So no, that is not it. Electron is harder to use than I was expecting. I was expecting the documentation to be a little bit better. Like a full example for working with IPC in the IPC documentation would be super neat. No. Electron IPC request response architecture with TypeScript. What does TypeScript have to do with any of these? Okay, so in our index, in our main, we'll have IPC. How do you create the window? New browser window with web preferences true makes it possible to use require in our HTML. I just tried this and no, this is false. So when you're creating a new browser window, you say web preferences node integration true, and you are not able to use require in the process, the renderer process. So that is false. There is still some other tricks you have to play to be able to use require in a renderer process. Node integration is not enough. Oh, come on, that is so annoying. Okay, so Felipe is saying maybe set enable remote module option of web preferences, or it might be context isolation. Okay, but context isolation should be about communication, and the problem is that require is failing, because I do have a test here for before require, after require, so require is not defined. I'm not even able to use require, let alone try to communicate. But enable remote module also seems to be related to, it seems to be related to how the security policies would work or something like that, but that's not the issue. IPC renderer. Can I get a hold of the main file here? IPC main, but no browser window. It doesn't show me how to create the browser window. Let's come back to this example. So when creating the browser window, you say nothing about node integration. And then in here, you're just able to use require. Okay, so all the tutorials, the documentation, everything is wrong. Oh no, Electron is fresh. It's poorly documented. It's terrible. I hate it. No, I don't hate it. You know how these things go. Let's look for Electron Renderer process require is not defined. Electron require is not defined. As of version 5, the default for node integration changed from true to false. You can enable it when creating blah blah blah. Okay, so maybe I do need context isolation. Let's see. Okay, context isolation was it. Now I'm interested. What is... Node integration seems pretty obvious. Whether node integration is enabled. Well, that is great documentation, thank you. No, what this means is that I can use some Node.js APIs from within the browser, but there is also context isolation. Whether to run Electron APIs and the specified preload script in a separate JavaScript context. Defaults to false. Whatever. No, come on. If it defaults to false, then I should be able to remove this and have the thing still work. But I'm not. So this documentation is wrong. Context isolation defaults to true. Yeah, we should probably open a pull request to change this. The context that the preload script runs in will only have access to its own dedicated document and window globals, as well as its own set of JavaScript built-ins. Okay, so I guess the way that probably most people are going to do this is by having a preload script and then attach whatever APIs they need, like the IPC renderer, to the window, like Felipe is suggesting. So the line that Felipe wrote in the chat would be in the preload script, but I would rather just have one script, which is just right there, and it has access to the IPC renderer. So let's see, now that I did this and it works, can I, so with context isolation false, can I click on the button? And it shows red here, awesome. So let's come back to our menu, and we don't want to alert anymore. We just want to send the message. And then we don't need these. And then we'll have the handler here is just, okay, so let's rerun this, see it working. So I click on blue and red and no, it doesn't work. I click on the first one, it works, but then it doesn't work anymore. And then it works again. And then I click and it doesn't do anything. And then it sometimes works. And sometimes it doesn't work. Oh no. This is bad. Click on the button. And then nothing. Oh, maybe it's because I used sync. So maybe there is just a send API. Is that how this will play out? So instead of the browser window docs, now I want the IPC. And I don't want just IPC. I want the client version of it. So IPC renderer. And I do have a send instead of send sync. Okay. So maybe send sync was waiting for us to respond, but we never do. So now I will want to send this information. So I'm using the main process as just a pipe between the two windows. So I receive the event on one side and I send an event to the other side. Can I send, so I'll have here the documentation for IPC main as well. Can I send an event? Yes, I know I can. I just looked at this. How do I send? Sending messages. It is also possible to send messages from the main process to the renderer process. See web contents send for more information. This is contents send. Window web contents send. So I will need to have the main window, and since I have the main window, I will have the menu as well. And here when I say this, I will say window equals, and here I will say main, and here I will say menu, and now these lines need to be separate, so I'll say main and menu. And I did all this so that in my IPC main on color, so when I receive this from the menu, I can say main window dot browser dot web contents dot send, and I will send the color message along like this. So I'm just forwarding the message. And then on my main window, I will have something similar to this where I initiate the IPC renderer globally. But I will also say that on color, I will receive an event that I don't care about, but I do care about its argument. And then I will have, maybe in the SVG, I will have a data attribute that is our current color. So I'll say current color equals maybe black. And I don't want to necessarily capitalize this. And I will add an option for black. So it starts with black. And then what I will say is, I do have the drawing here. So it could be kind of nice to have all this in one place. So I'll say the IPC renderer stuff below here. So on color, I'll say drawing dataset current color is equal to color. And then when I begin, my stroke will be drawing dataset current color. Let's see how that behaves. So I'm drawing in black. I click on blue and I am drawing in blue. Oh, that was good. That was rewarding. That worked. I feel good. Let's start the tablet. It is Bluetooth, so it turns itself off if I don't use it. So I can draw in blue, come here, change to red, draw in red. So all the interprocess communication stuff is working. Let's wrap this up. Tomorrow I will not be working on this. Tomorrow I will be streaming at the same time, 5:30 UTC. But I will be streaming on IDQD Sounds channel. We will be working on some Reaper stuff. And then I don't know what I'm gonna do on Thursday. Maybe I will work on this again. Maybe I will work on something Reaper related. But yeah, so we have here a quick and dirty drawing engine, and we have interprocess communication, and we have the windows that we know we will probably want this architecture. So this is looking good. Let's commit and push out what we have, and tomorrow I will work on Reaper over at IDQD Sound And if you're interested in Reaper stuff, you should go there. We will write scripts for beginners. And if you're interested in Lua, the programming language, you can go there as well. If you are interested in Lua, but not necessarily in Reaper, you will learn Lua. Yeah, let's push this. You can follow along. In the description, there is a link to the repository. Here it is, Notestrator. Yeah, fun stuff. On Thursday, we may work on positioning, or we may work on other settings, or we may work on selecting which colors we will have. We don't want to just have pure red, pure blue. Doesn't look all that good. But that's it for today. Thank you very much, Felipe. Thank you very much, everyone else who was here. And thank you, Felipe, for all the insightful comments. You, as always, you know a lot more about what I'm doing than I do. I'll try to read up on Electron, but I think it kind of takes away the fun of the stream if the person already knows everything that they are doing. It's good to struggle a bit. So, yeah, thank you very much for being here with me. Make sure you subscribe to the channel and support me on PayPal and Patreon. Make sure tomorrow that you join us over at IDDQD. And yeah, that's it. See you tomorrow. Bye.